I'm Michael Fox, and this is the Prospector News Podcast. And we are on location at the Association for Mineral Exploration of British Columbia's Roundup event in downtown Vancouver. And I'm joined by a brand new guest who I just met at this event, Brian Miller, who is the CEO and director of Astra Exploration Incorporated. It's been a pleasure to meet you, and welcome to the show.
Thank you, Michael. Appreciate having the opportunity.
Yeah, I was quite excited. This is a new project that I'm not familiar with at all, and it's been able to give me a good tour through the website, and I'm quite excited to talk to you about it today. So, before we get really started, because if I wasn't familiar with it, definitely our listeners weren't familiar with it. So let's explain what Astra is all about.
Sure. Astra's a relatively new company. We were founded in 2020, and we built the company around a specific project in Northern Chile. And we chose Chile specifically as a jurisdiction, number one, because of the geology. Our primary interest is epithermal precious metals, gold and silver. And we believe that Chile is one of the most underexplored yet fertile environments for these kind of deposits, and that discoveries of large size still have a good probability of being undiscovered. And so we built the team around this concept. From the board level to management to investors, these are people who have all had experience with these types of deposits in this jurisdiction. And specifically what we're talking about is the northern Paleocene region of Chile. And there's several factors that all come together to create this opportunity. As I mentioned, primarily it's the geological endowment. You got to be in an area that these things can exist. And so El Peñon is one of the most prolific examples. It's the largest deposit of its type in Chile. And that's kind of the model that we're looking at. And one of our directors has had, he led one of the teams that discovered El Peñon. So we have that in-house expertise. But when people think about Chile, they tend to think about copper because it hosts some of the largest copper deposits in the world. And oftentimes these porphyry systems create nearby epithermal systems that are separate, but they're genetically linked. And the area is covered by a broad cover of sediment post-mineralization. So these things don't daylight at surface. Oftentimes there's no evidence, even something the size of El Peñon, very little to no evidence at surface that it even existed. And to give you a scale of what I'm talking about, El Peñon total known endowment is somewhere around 8 to 9 million ounces of gold and 220 plus million ounces of silver. And this is a deposit that had no surface expression. So that's what we're focused on. We identified a property that had a lot of these characteristics. It's a large epithermal system. It's recent discovery, early stages of exploration, but it has never been systematically explored for epithermal. So we're quite excited about it. It's got district scale potential. It's very large, thick veins.
Yeah, there's something fun about getting in on that ground floor and playing in the sandbox so nobody else has played in the sandbox. I used to be a skier, is like cutting the trail after a fresh snowfall and being the first one down the hill. It's kind of like that, isn't it? I see your face is lighting up. I struck the right nerve on that.
No, for sure. It's two things all at once. It's like you said, downhill skiing. It can be nerve-wracking because you're committed, you're on the go. But nonetheless, it is exciting. And what I find most exciting about it, number one, is having the right people around you who have this experience and this ability, who have proven themselves in this regard before, from the technical expertise, the investment community, and the operational. But to have a concept, to start out with a concept and a thesis about this is why we're choosing Northern Chile. This is a project we've selected, and this is what we think could be there. And then through our exploration, continuing to have evidence that mounts up, that supports that thesis in a lot of ways unequivocally. I mean, it's exciting. It's exciting every step of the way.
No, definitely. And those that listen to me on a regular basis know I'm a big believer, as I call it, the trifecta, the jockey, horse, and and track, which is the management, the project, and the jurisdiction. And you seem to have all three in place here. And I'm particularly excited about the management and the team that you have behind you. Tell us more about them and how you came to together as a team.
Yeah, this is one of those things. It's actually a really interesting evolution. We founded Astra in 2020, August of 2020, so literally right in the middle of the pandemic. And fortuitously, if it had not been for the pandemic, there's no way that this team would exist today, because we're literally scattered across several different continents, but we were able to source individuals regardless of their locality, based solely on their expertise, their expertise, their knowledge, and their proven accomplishments. So, uh, co-founders and at the board level, Stuart Smith, this was kind of his brainchild. He worked at Teck and he worked on part of this project when they were exploring it for copper in about 2015, 16, and 17. He was the one that recognized the underappreciated epithermal potential. And this is actually quite common. It's one of the reasons we chose Chile, because some of the most prospective areas for epithermal discovery is nearby porphyry deposits, because they're genetically linked. The epithermal systems are often created by the porphyry intrusions. But large copper mining companies are typically disinterested in the epithermal potential. So most of the highly prospective epithermal systems have never been explored for such. And this was exactly the case with this. This is why we acquired the project. Darcy Marood was somebody that I didn't know previous to starting Astra, but I was introduced to him. His background was obviously his experience in Chile, Argentina with low sulfidation systems, and his involvement with the El Peñon discovery. He liked what we were doing. He liked the concept, and he signed on right away. Charles Funk is another director, as well as David Caulfield. Charles is a young guy. He's very active. He's CEO of Heliostar. He was also involved with Vizsla Silver. He was VP Exploration during that discovery. And Dave Caulfield is a geologist, been in the industry for many decades now, very well respected. So fantastic team at the board level. And then at management, we've got Diego Guido, who's our head of exploration. He was credited for the Pinguino discovery in Santa Cruz. Epithermal systems are his specialty. He's a globally recognized expert. And our country manager, Roberto Alarcon, is based in Santiago, lawyer by background. He's a business guy. He's connected. He knows how to get stuff done. So it really is a fantastic blend at management and board level. And then, as I mentioned, investors, they all comprise the team, the investors included. And some of our biggest shareholders include Michael Gentili, Peter Maroney, Dundee Goodman. These are people who have obviously had experience with these types of deposits and investments in these early stage discoveries. So we really have put together an amazing group of people for the task at hand.
Yeah, no, definitely. Now, 2023 was a bit of a quiet year. You were going through a permitting process, which in Chile can take some time, unfortunately. The permits are now in place, but you were kind of kicking rocks around while you were doing that and found something.
Yeah, you could say that. So in Chile, it's the permitting process. It did take a while. It took about 14 months, which we expected. The fortunate thing was there was no surprises with the permitting process. We just received the permits in January this year that allow us to continue drilling on the epithermal system, and as well as doing geophysical surveys. But while we were held up by the permitting, we did know there was copper potential here because of Stuart Smith's involvement prior to Astra. We knew there was some copper opportunity, so we decided to have a look at that in the northeast section of the claims. And the guys were out there, did some mapping and sampling, and they mapped this tourmaline breccia. And Diego recognized right away that it was very similar to a tourmaline breccia he had observed when he toured the Sierra Gorda mine just months prior to that. And so we got to digging deeper into the data, and what we had there was not just copper, not just residual copper opportunity, but a very compelling copper target. And remember, this is in the middle of elephant country. We're literally 15 kilometers from Sierra Gorda and Spence mines, about equidistant between the two. And these are some of the largest porphyry deposits in the world. These things are massive by any standard. And Teck was exploring on this in 2015, 16, and 17. They had drilled 8 holes in this. They had observed the same tourmaline breccia that we mapped. They had mapped the same porphyry alteration that we mapped. And they put some drill holes in this, trying to cut this tourmaline breccia at depth. And one thing about this region, I mentioned it's covered in a sediment cover. It's also got caliche, which makes IP very difficult to do. You don't get the conductivity. So typically you do your IP and then you drill. Well, Teck drilled, and then they decided that they could use those drill holes they just created to put the conductors down the holes to do the IP survey. And when they did that, what it revealed was a large chargeability anomaly, basically a chargeability corridor, because it's almost 2 kilometers north to south and a little over half a kilometer wide, but this very large chargeability just to the east of where they just drilled. And their drill holes intersected some interesting stuff. They cut pyritic halo, sericitic alteration, anomalous copper, kind of all the things you want to see as you vector towards a mineralized copper body. But their holes, because they were trying to cross-cut the breccia at depth, they were oriented away from the chargeability anomaly. So to try to explain this without a visual, you've now got the pathfinders that you want to see in drill holes, and right next to the best drill target that you just missed, and not their fault because they didn't have the IP at the time. Teck did some fantastic work, but we've got a very large and compelling copper target for that area. We know that the technical team at Teck wanted to continue with it, but they didn't. Teck was going through some real difficult times at that time. They had budget cuts and they couldn't fund the exploration under the JV agreement. So, here we thought we had some residual copper opportunity, and we've got a very compelling copper target that really changes the risk reward profile of this project.
Oh, definitely. So with the permits in place, we're heading into 2024. You got to be excited to get back out there drilling again.
We'd love to. Nothing we'd love to do more. Unfortunately, the market situation right now is not the best. Difficult to raise money for any exploration projects. So, we've entertained several ideas of what to do with this. The idea, do you JV it? And, in talking with, our key shareholders, we're all of the conclusion that, look, we've got a company that's got less than 48 million shares outstanding right now, very tightly held. That group of investors I just mentioned and management, we still own 25%. So there's over 70% there and just a small handful of people and a very tight share structure. And you've got 2 targets, 1 copper, 1 gold, both of which have the potential to be quite large. If you do a JV agreement, you give most of that upside potential away. The real attraction here is that you've got 2 large targets by any standard and a junior with a tight share structure, and the risk reward profile of that is very compelling. So in this environment, we're happy. We continue to advance these, get them prepped for a comprehensive drill program. It would take several thousand drill meters to really do the system justice, but we're just continuing to position the company for better market conditions so we can really thoroughly test these targets.
Yeah. So we need the market to break for funding in order to fund drill program.
Yeah, I mean, we could fund a drill program, but it's at these prices, it's so dilutive to do that. And your shareholders, they invest with the thought in mind that you're going to act as a fiduciary and act in their best interest the best you can. And this is where I think it's important that management has the ownership that they do, because their share position, our share position as management, it's more important than our paycheck. So we have this in the back of our minds when we're considering financing, how much, at what price, and where does that get us? And right now, I think that the better opportunity is to sit and wait, continue to advance the project to where it is at a drill ready stage. But, also because these market conditions exist, that also means that there are opportunities out there. So from the beginning, our main goal is to construct a portfolio of high quality projects. We've got 2 in the portfolio now, and we've been looking at projects very diligently for the last year and a half, looking to add 1 or 2 more. This is the environment to add projects. And so then you have a big portfolio of big targets, high risk to reward profile, then you fund and then you drill.
Perfect. If people want to continue to follow the story as it moves forward, how would they do so?
You can go to our website, of course, www.astra-exploration.com. That's primary method of contact. Corporate emails on there, checked regularly. We're at several of the shows here. But we're always looking for new opportunities to get out there and tell the story. We don't spend a lot on marketing, so we think that the dollars are better invested into the ground. So a lot of the marketing is very direct. So we always direct people to the website. Always pick up the phone and call us. We're always there, happy to answer questions and discuss it.
That's also a good thing. That was one of the things when we first met that you had mentioned that stood out that I like it. I always tell investors, you always pick up the phone if the CEO or someone doesn't call you back. That's probably a time not to invest and walk away.
That's right. It's a flag, and red flags only get bigger.
That is right. I thank you for joining me, and it's been a pleasure meeting you, and I look forward to having further chats with you down the road.
Thank you, Michael. Appreciate you having me.
The Prospector News podcast is for educational purposes only. The opinions expressed are those of the participants and are not to be taken as investment advice. Listeners need to do their own due diligence and seek advice of a licensed investment advisor.